All right, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you Armando and Sergio for being here. As Elon mentioned, I'm Zia Daniel Wigter, Chief Content Officer at eMarketer, and am very excited to talk about some of the opportunities in Latin America. So we've got a number of questions for all of you, but we're going to start out with misconceptions. What do people get wrong about selling online in Latin America?
Want to start?
Or please.
I think, well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you. I was already introduced, but my name is Sergio. I work for GoPro. Been there for 11 years. I started running Latin America in 2014, and then extended to take care of the entire region, entire Americas, most recently. And one misconception that I see a lot about Latin America as a region is that there's still this idea that Latin America is just one thing, right? When I started at GoPro, for example, we have one price for the entire continent for all products, and that makes absolutely no sense. So this is the first big mistake that I see, and big misconception. And then also ignoring or not being aware of all the logistics issues, the cultural difference between the countries. Portuguese, Spanish, and even in Spanish is different between countries. When we talk about localization of materials, some words don't make sense in some areas, even though they are in Spanish. So I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions that I found throughout the years.
And Armando.
Yeah, I fully agree with those. And I think another one important is normally we are mainly evolving countries or undeveloped countries, and typically we think that they are not digitally advanced. But if you see any world ranking of social media usage, for example, you see a lot of Latin countries on the top. Argentina, Mexico, Brazil are examples of those. So TikTok is fully developed there. Many other social media platforms. And of course, e-commerce is also fully developed. We have some limitations. We have a lot of issues with especially last mile and so on, logistics, but in general, it's fully advanced. So that's why I think it's maybe some misconception that is done.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I was in Mexico last week giving a talk, and Mexico 10 years ago had digital penetration of retail of 2%. It's now close to 20%. So it's on par with the US at this point. So exactly to your point, the idea that these countries are, less sort of digitally sophisticated than some of the others. It's, Mexico is way beyond like a France or a Germany at this stage in terms of digital penetration of retail. So you mentioned some of the challenges that exist in the region. What are some of sort of the operational challenges, particularly when it comes to like importing products from overseas? You've got customs, you've got logistics. What are the big things that you've encountered?
Well, jump in here, okay? But yes, of course, logistics is a big problem. Not only when we talk about internationally, clearing customs or just understanding the best way to get there, if it's over put products on the plane or in the water, but also internal logistics, a very complex issue that most of the brands ignore when they decide to invest in a certain country. Logistics in Brazil is completely different from logistics in Argentina or in Colombia, for example, and the costs associated to it are very different. Sure, it's different. The way that the products move internally are different. And also, when we think about online e-commerce, delivery to customers is also a challenge. There's a lot of things that happen in the US that they are completely different in the US, and when the brand starts to work in Latin America, they completely ignore that, and that's a big problem for them. Also, the tax complexity and dealing with exchange rate. So I think exchange rate is a big risk that the companies try to avoid And then, of course, setting up the right MSRPs and understanding if you change it when the exchange rate goes up or down, if you hold it, if you're hedging, and all the costs associated with hedging. It's also something that most of the companies, they tend to oversee and not take into consideration when going to LatAm.
Yeah, adding to that, I think that the regulations that each country has, we have so many different countries, and each country has totally different regulations. Not each product that you want to sell, if you want to sell locally, you need to go to the government and say, okay, this Bluetooth device, for example, is within this band and so on. So every country has a different type of certification, homologation, and compliance issues. So that's also a very big barrier. Most typically, we have at least 3 versions of the same product, maybe to sell to Mexico, then Central America, and Argentina. It's what of its own. A different AC plug, for example, needs to be. You cannot import the product if it doesn't have a specific AC plug that it's only handled by Argentina. So those type of things are, of course, barriers that you need to work to avoid, but to comply with them, of course.
Yeah, and adding to that, when we talk about certifications and syncing global launch of product, once you get FCC here, then you start working on certifications in certain countries. It can take anywhere from like 4 to 12 weeks. So if you want to have a global launch, you take into consideration the timing of getting certifications in some of these countries. So yeah, that is.
And maybe jumping a little bit forward. Of course, if you sell maybe cross-border using knock from Miami, in some countries you don't need to do that. All that you can sell US version into Argentina, for example, with no issue. That's one benefit. But I'm jumping ahead, maybe to your future question, I guess.
You're jumping ahead here. All right. So you mentioned having like different products for different countries. How do you decide which products to sell where? And looking at like your best sellers versus the long tail of products, how do you make that decision? Because you're going to be looking at a lot of different countries, a lot of different types of consumer behavior. Tell us a little bit more about what that looks like.
Well, of course, we have long tail and short tail products. The short tail products definitely are in all countries. We try to be everywhere, no? And try to the volume makers. Then long tail, yes, we sometimes have to decide within the country if we see the potential of the volume, if it makes sense. Of course, as I said, all those certifications and having inventory is a very high cost, no, with risk of devaluation of inventory cost and so on. So those type of products definitely depends on the potential that we see. Sometimes it's hard to define that potential, but definitely it's a big point when deciding which products to launch in which country.
Right. And I think for us at GoPro, we take a lot into consideration the geographic, because most of our products are used outdoors. So when we think about the assortment, I cannot have the same assortment in Bariloche and then have the same assortment in Cancun. We always look at geographic within country and also within the region to understand the best assortment for every region. But for us, we don't have a lot of different categories. Like Sony, they have TVs, audio, car audio, they have everything. We only have cameras. So for us, our short tail is of course cameras, and then the long tail for all the accessories and the ecosystem. But for us, we take a geographic approach to the region, and also the seasonality. So it's winter in one region, and there's snow. We lean more changing our assortment to snow products, and if it's summer, beach, we change the assortment according to the seasonality.
Okay. Interesting. All right. And we're going to get this one out of the way. The T word, tariffs. What impact is it having? How much is it complicating what is happening in your worlds right now?
Oof. Well, have we checked your phones? Anything changed since we started this conversation? Hopefully not. So for me, in North America, I handle North America for the impact. So the impact in North America is very significant. All products we are made in Asia, we diversified our supply chain years ago, so we're not 100% dependent on China, but even though we produce products outside of China, there's still 10% tariffs on those products. And for product from China made, there's still, even with the new release, there's still between anywhere 40 to 70% tariffs on it. So this has been the topic of 90% of my time the last 45 days. And there will be, I think, and Armando can jump in here again, there's going to be a global impact because of this tariff war. I would say that when we start charging more the U.S. consumers, the demand here might drop a little bit, and then the companies and the brands, they will start looking for revenue sources outside of the U.S. So that can be a good opportunity for Latin America. And every time that the demand softens in the North America, brings look at Latin America, India, and APAC as a growth potential. So I think the norm for Latin America on the short term, it can be beneficial because it can drive demand and product prices here tend to go up, while we don't necessarily need to raise prices in Latin America. So the challenge that we always have in Latin America, when someone says, hey, I'll go to Miami and buy it, might not be the case going forward because Miami might be more expensive.
Yeah, I think very good summary. For us as well, we've been discussing a lot about this. The impact, honestly, I think nobody knows what the impact will be at the end. As of now, everybody thinks that there's going to be an impact, and of course we do, but honestly, we don't have any conclusion as of now. It's very, as Sergio mentioned, it's changing every day almost, so we don't know. Let's see. It's hard to say what is the impact exactly that it will have. It will have some impact, but maybe it's positive for Latin America. I think I agree. Let's see.
Yeah, on April 9th, we were in a meeting talking about tariffs, and we came out with a plan. We left the meeting, everything changed.
Yeah.
Friday, we laid out a new plan, and on Saturday, everything changed. So, yeah, we really don't know this.
So as of 6 o'clock today, that's your perspective.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to the fun stuff. Market entry. We have a number of brands here who are looking at Latin America, trying to understand if it makes sense to expand there from a digital perspective. If you were both looking at Latin America today as a brand, considering entering the region, where would you go first? Do you go to one country? Do you go to many? Do you sort of do a step-by-step approach thoughts there?
Yes. Hard question. I mean, I don't have an answer. Of course, depends on the product, depends on the brand, depends on the intention or the strategy. But definitely, I think you should start little by little for sure. Maybe there are some countries that are more complicated than others. As we mentioned, lots of complications. Some countries are easier and lower barriers of entry. So it depends, honestly. But definitely, I think the potential is there. So somehow you need to decide and start somewhere for Latin, for sure. Latin is a huge market, and lots of opportunities. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It depends on, for me, it depends on really what the brand wants from this market and their intention to say. If it's a long-term decision, then if someone asks me, I would say, let's take a different look at Mexico and Brazil, just because the marketplace platforms and the e-commerce is just more advanced there with more players. And also online penetration is higher, and the customers are a little bit more tech savvy, I would say. In that region, there's a lot of engagement in social media. And you pull up rankings, Mexico and Brazil are always the 1 and 2 in that segment. So I would take a different look at Mexico and Brazil. And for the other countries, I would use the power of the marketplace, especially Mercado Libre, to really don't take any risks and think about a cross-border operation in those countries. So you don't take a lot of risks, you still have products slowly, and be in mind you're developing your brand in the 2 biggest countries, which is Brazil and Mexico. That's what I would do.
Great. You teed up marketplace as well. That's going to be our next topic here. Mercado Libre is going to be the dominant player in a number of different markets, but there are others out there as well. Who else do you work together with?
We have, I think, at least 10 to 15 marketplaces in every country, honestly. Besides, as you mentioned, knowing that Mercado Libre is very dominant in all countries, we still want to be everywhere. There are many marketplaces that have some advantages. They are omni-channel, some of them. They have offline, they have many point of sales, which adds to the equation. They are also very strong, maybe financing better than Mercado Libre in some cases. In that way, they are very regional in some cases where people are very fond of that brand because they used to buy there for a long time. Latin customers, I think, besides they are very price-oriented, it's a price-oriented market, still there are a lot of loyal customers. They're very loyal to the brands, and definitely I think that's important when deciding which marketplaces. So some marketplaces are honestly really strong. There are many banks that have their own marketplace there, and they also are quite strong, and they offer very good financing options and payment options for customers, which also is a good advantage. So I think there are so many, depends on Magalu in Brazil, Falabella, Chile, Peru, Frave in Argentina. There are many, honestly, many other marketplaces that are still strong and still have a lot of opportunity.
Yes, no, I fully agree. I think Mercado Libre is the biggest or one of the biggest players in the region. For sure, the biggest in some countries. Maybe Mexico is a little bit different with Amazon being so strong. But basically, as you said, the banks are on marketplace now. Most of the retailers are on marketplace now. I'm going to plan this thing. So what we do is, what I would do, and that's kind of the guidance we have, is to look at the marketplace and see if there's a fit with the brand, if they can serve any purpose that we're looking for in terms of being able to really tell the story about the brand, about GoPro in this case. And also, we are very concerned about customer support. So we want to make sure that whatever marketplace we're working with, they can provide an exceptional customer support to our customers. So with that, I would say that we're pretty agnostic, but these are the things that have been taken into consideration when we choose to work with the marketplace.
Okay. And if your brand is working with a number of different ones, if you are working with Magalu and Falabella and Mercado Libre, how do you manage all of that? Because it's a lot, right?
Well, that's another complication that the countries have. Now, of course, you need integration with totally different marketplaces that have different type of integration needs or types. That's but of course there are a lot of vendors there that can help you with the integration. So we manage, and the good thing is you can even differentiate prices with all of them and different issues. So in general, of course, there's a solution to work with everybody.
Yeah, and one advantage of working with them is that like you can test different things in different platforms. So we know that in some cases, certain product works better in Bagatas and Visa. Some products, they work better in Mercado Libre. So you don't need to just like certify on everything. You can like cherry pick your offers because you know it's good. You're going to have the best return on your investment. So if I know that I tested it and I know that a certain product in the promotion perform better on Amazon, I can need to turn that on Mercado Libre. And the opposite is the same. So that gives you the ability to pick the best platform depending on the synergy that this platform has with your products. If it's more price oriented, then you know that your base level products are going to perform more there. So you send more resources to that to the simple segment of the product. And the opposite is the same. So you know that higher end products perform better in a certain platform, that's where you invest the dollars. Basically, say you invest the dollars on a platform that sells any high-end products, and you invest the dollars in the low.
So test a number of different ones is your recommendation.
Absolutely.
And then just one follow-up question. When you find that a certain product is doing better on one marketplace versus another, can you usually figure out why that is? Or is it just that's what the data tells you, so that's what you go with?
Yeah, it's like when a video go viral, you don't know really why. You get the data, but like there's sometimes makes no sense. But the data tells you that, and you stick to it, and you test and you double check, and most of the time, like you don't have a good answer, but you have the data to support your decision, and you go to there.
I think we probably just have time for a couple more questions here. So one that I do want to touch on again, because many brands will have some sort of physical presence in the region. Do you think there's a reason then to expand digitally as well to do sort of a cross-border play, or why is that worthwhile as an additional channel?
Well, as I mentioned, no, we do have offices in some countries, not in all countries of Latin America, but we cater all countries as best as we can. But of course, many of our long-tail products, definitely, it's hard to reach some countries, some small markets, or some even big markets where it's hard to reach. So definitely, cross-border is a very good solution, a very good answer to test, maybe, as we mentioned, test in some markets, test in some marketplaces, and even have it as a definitely go-to market for some type of products, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure my answer as well. I mean, testing and the marketplaces, although like we are present in every major retailer in Latin America, having a presence in marketplaces and using cross-funnel creation really gives us the agility to fill some of the gaps that we might have when there are shortages on first of all, certain products. The cross-border operation guarantee that we're not losing sale just because we don't have inventory available. And if there's a product that has some issues getting the certification because there's a line, and it takes 3-4 months, and you can just use GoPro to do that. And you can also do a lot of testing when it comes to bundling. So you can do different bundles, what we call soft bundles. So you ship them together. It looks like one product, but it's like 2 different boxes. You ship to the customer, and you can see if these bundles work. And you can do that kind of risk-free because you don't need to take the inventory position in country, pay all the taxes, all the duties, FX, exposure, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious one maybe we didn't mention is price. No, sometimes going through cross-border with the courier regulation of some countries, maybe you can reach even a cheaper price than you reach if you have to import officially and make all the sales, all the certification and so on. So that's an also advantage in some cases as well.
Okay. And as we wrap up here, going back to your statement before, what are sort of the benefits of working together with a player like that helps facilitate the cross-border piece?
Yeah, I think Ilan mentioned at the beginning, it's a one-stop solution to reach a lot of markets, a lot of marketplaces, a lot of customers in a very easy way, and simplified way. And I think maybe that's summarizes it. As we mentioned, we have started working with them. I think last week we started officially the operation, and honestly, we are impressed. It's much better than we expected. And it was just we started as a trial, honestly, and now it's doing quite well. So definitely, yes, it's a very good option.
Yes, that's the way I see it as well. For me, it's more a one-stop shop, and it gives you security that you're doing business with someone that will be there for you, will answer your calls. I'm sure Armando gets a lot of calls from China saying, hey, can I take your products to Argentina? Saying, sell to me in Miami or sell to me here in China, and I'll take it to Mercado or Argentina. And then these guys, they might buy once, they destroy the market, they don't follow up, and then it's here because they decided to sell something else next week. And having a partner that is really there, that is committed to your product, that is committed to help you build the brand in the country, and it is not there just to make a couple of dollars and disappear and find the next opportunity. It's something that is really valuable for the percentage partnership, and that's why I see now being so successful.
Fantastic. Sergio, Armando, thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we are hearing more about marketplaces, but from the marketplace directly. We have David and Haman joining next. So thank you again.
Thank you.